Welcome back to the chat. Another busy week. As always, now we're getting into the summer. We're getting into a lot of exciting times with these seasons wrapping up. This is definitely the time that I enjoy the most. There's so much going on, so much to play for, rather than just kind of like the stuff that's in the mid season. When you get to the end of the season, that's when you really start to get the exciting matches and exciting tournaments. So starting with golf, Rory McIlroy. Finally, I'm mentioning him in a good light on this chat. He won on the weekend, first time since 2019. So it's round a course that he's won at, I think, 3 times already. So he knows the course. He obviously is very good at it. The reason why that's significant is because in golf, a lot of the time, you go guys do go peaks and troughs in terms of their form. But in terms of major championships, which is the one they all want to win, winning the tournaments just before those is always a big deal. Rory McIlroy has managed to win this tournament. The PGA Championship, which is the second major of the year, second out of the 4, is in 2 weeks' time. And obviously I just mentioned the tournament he won yesterday was a track he's won. Of course, he's won 3 times. The PGA Championship is going to be where he won his first major championship in 2012. So if there was a time for him to get hot, it's now. And if there's a tournament, if there's a major championship that Rory is looking at being in good form and being one of the favourites for, it's definitely this one. It's one of those where if you look at a lot of the guys in the even in the guys in the tournament on the weekend, some of them did okay. I mean, Bryson DeChambeau was in there. He's in the top 10. Patrick Reed was in there, top 10 as well. Justin Thomas was kind of, he's in there. I think he's in top 25 as well. So the form guys across the tour, I mean, John Rahm, one of the favourites generally for most tournaments. I think world number 3, he missed the cut. A lot of good guys missed the cut. It's a strange time in the PGA Tour because there's not a lot of guys who are like, he's on fire, he's doing well. And Rory McIlroy, who normally goes into a lot of these tournaments lately, a lot of these major tournaments anyway, not really the form guy. Now he's going into a major championship, obviously, which is in 2 weeks' time. There's another tournament this weekend. But he's going into that one as one of the favourites, regardless of what course it's been played on. And the fact it's being played on a course he's won before, and he's just proven yesterday that he can win. He obviously likes courses he's won before, as you would, but with him, it seems a specific thing at the minute because he's kind of going through swing changes and all those kind of things. And now he seems to be back at it. So, I'll do a little, obviously the PGA is in a couple of weeks, so that's not going to be featured heavily until then. But Rory McIlroy, keep your eyes open for him because he's in form as of today. He finally got a win, so good on him. Staying with, I guess, that side of the pond over in America, I mentioned last week about LA, Lakers. Now, last week, they play so many games, it's crazy. They play at 15 or 16 games a month, which is absolutely insane. So in the last week, they've already played 4 games. They won 2 and lost 2. They won 2 big games. They've just beaten Denver, who are one of the top seeds. They beat Phoenix as well, who are, again, one of the top seeds. So they're in that play-in tournament I mentioned. So they were slipping towards that. They're now in that because Portland, the team they're kind of going up against, beat them last week. So now not only have they got a better record than them, they've got a better tie break now. So if they become tied, Portland beat them, so they're going to have the tie break. So LA, they've both got 4 games left. LA have got an easier fixture run. So in theory, they could sneak back into the automatic playoff spot. But it's looking like they're going to have to play Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors in a play-in game. It's like a one-off game for that 7th seed. So it's a bit tense. I mean, LeBron obviously came back from injury last week. Like I said, he went off injured again in the very next game, and he sat out the last 2 games. So he might make an appearance in this week, which will be the final week. There's 4 games on this week. He might make an appearance. Certainly, if they lose the next one, you're gonna see him in the one after that. But I think if they get a couple of wins, they might just resign themselves to that because it is only one game, and Golden State Warriors obviously aren't the team that won, 3 out of 4 a couple of years ago. But they do have one of the form players in Steph Curry, who's an MVP candidate. So, I'm sure he'd rather not play Golden State, but at the same time, I think resting up for an ankle injury, certainly his age at 36, 37, I think in my head, I'm not obviously LeBron James, but I think you'd rather rest up and be 100% for a playoff game, even if it is just a play-in to get into the playoffs. So, very interesting time in the NBA. We're getting towards some very, very interesting playoff series. Most of these playoff series are going to be very good. Certainly after the first round, you'll have a couple of mismatches. But after that, it's going to be the very best teams playing in their own stadiums. Like last year, so obviously there was a bubble. So they all played in the same tournament and the same stadium in Disney World. So it was all there's no home advantage. This year, you come back to the crowds. Everything's opening up over there. Home advantage is going to count. And yeah, very exciting time ahead in the NBA. Football, of course, happened last week. So much went down. Starting, I guess, with the Champions League and the Europa League. I mean, Man City beat PSG. In the end, it was quite comfortable. Like the score line and the way the games went. I mean, PSG had a guy sent off in both games, which kind of tells you everything you need to know about PSG. Mbappe didn't play the second leg, so he was injured. And City just kind of controlled it, in the main. Obviously, PSG are a top team, but City just looked better over 2 legs and got that game done in the end quite comfortably. It was 4-1 on aggregate. And now they're in the final against Chelsea, which, again, it was going to be a close game, but Real Madrid really didn't show up in that second game. The first game, they kind of hung in there and got a bit lucky with Chelsea missing some chances. Chelsea missed a lot of chances, well, Timo Werner and Chelsea missed a lot of chances in the second leg. But, and their goalkeeper, Chelsea's goalkeeper, kept them in at some unreal saves. So, I mean, Madrid just didn't show up. They just didn't fancy. I think some of their guys were injured. I think Sergio Ramos, he was back. He looked like he wasn't 100%. But yeah, Chelsea, again, in the end, that one looked kind of comfortable as well. That was 3-1 on aggregate. So both of those, both English teams in the final, which is, I guess, good. It's good for the league. So obviously Man City are, I'd say, slight favourites, but Chelsea, not only did they beat them in the FA Cup semi-final not so long ago, they beat them in the Premier League on the weekend. So in a one-off game, it's kind of a 50-50 realistically, because especially after just 2 days ago, yesterday, Chelsea beating Man City, that's, as far as something in their mind now going forward, they're going to know they've just got the win over them. So, we'll see. Champions League final in 3 weeks' time. They're talking about moving it over to England, obviously, because 2 English teams playing it, and the Turkey's now where the final's been played. Turkey's obviously on the red list for Great Britain, so I don't think the fans aren't allowed to go there. So they're talking about moving it to the UK, which I guess again could be good for, well, certainly the fans. So yeah, watch this space. In the Europa League, United won. They lost the game against Roma, but they won the tie because obviously they destroyed them in the first leg. So that was, I guess, comfortable enough. Arsenal weren't so lucky. They drew 0-0. They needed to win that game. Obviously they didn't. So it's Man U and Villarreal. So the same week, Champions League final has been played. Obviously, the Europa League is going to be Man U and Villarreal. Again, obviously United, I guess, would be the form team going into that. But Villarreal, getting to the final is not easy in any competition. And certainly, this will be no different. Couple weeks time, Man U have a lot of games this week, every week it seems. So fatigue could be a factor for Man U for sure. And Villarreal aren't really in any title races over there in Spain. So again, watch this space and see how that one develops. I mean, United should be, certainly favourites for that one. I wouldn't expect anything too crazy. But again, finals, a one-off game. Nerves kick in, fatigue kicks in. You just never know. So the Premier League on the weekend, I'm going to do a separate video because I feel like I need to. Because obviously I did one not so long ago, and I put my neck out there saying who's going to get top 4. And these guys are proving me very wrong. Clearly, some of the fixtures you'd expect these guys to win, they're just not winning, which you could account for, but you wouldn't predict that, I don't think. Leicester are in real trouble. They were my team. I was talking about top four. Mainly that last spot, because I assumed Leicester were gonna get some points, but they're making that look very difficult, and they're looking like they might miss out altogether, which would be a crazy collapse. Bear in mind they were like almost going for second at one point. Leicester managed to lose. West Ham lost again. So I've put the curse on West Ham. So Jesse Lingard, I'm sorry. David Moyes, I'm sorry. Any West Ham fans out there, I'm very sorry, because I've basically put a curse on you boys, and it's looking a bit peak. I'm not gonna lie. Other than that, Liverpool managed to get a win, so they're ticking along. Obviously, they play Man U in a couple of days, which is going to be the key game for them, because Liverpool need to win all their games from now on. They can't really drop any points. Liverpool managed to win. United obviously won. Chelsea beat Man City, like I mentioned. So Chelsea are looking comfortable at this point to get that top four. Again, this is me talking, so it's probably not comfortable. Put the curse back on them now. So they're looking very interesting for top four. This week's going to be, there's loads of games going on again, so we're going to get a clearer picture when all these games kind of shake out. But, fatigue will come into it for Man U and Chelsea. Obviously, have got a lot of games on. The other teams, West Ham and Liverpool and stuff, they've got a very limited amount of games, so they can rest a lot more, and they're not battling on multiple fronts. So, I'll say that this fatigue that I keep mentioning with Chelsea isn't really being borne out at all, because they're just keeping clean sheets, winning games, managing to rotate. They've got a very, very deep squad, so that is a big part of it. But I don't think they can mess that from here. But again, they've got some interesting games. They've got Arsenal still to play, and they've got Leicester still to play. So again, watch this space. I'm going to do a little breakdown of exactly where they're at right now, but very interesting. Now, obviously England's interesting enough, but across Europe now there's 3 leagues. Well, 2 leagues are still to be decided. Juventus, who I mentioned before, were going for their 10th straight league title. Now, not only have they not got that, they're now looking at not even getting the top 4, which is quite unheard of for Italy. Bear in mind, they've won 9 in a row. So they're now outside the top 4 over there in Italy. They've got 3 games left. They're a point behind because they lost on the weekend. So yeah, that one's going to go down to the wire, along with France, so PSG, again, another team who've won almost all the league titles in the last 7 years. They drew on the weekend, so they've handed the advantage to Lille, and there's only 2 games left there now. They're 3 points behind, so they're going to need some help. They're going to need Lille to lose a game, at least one, and the fixtures they have remaining against teams in the bottom half. So it's not looking good for them either after they've just got out of the Champions League. Another team that's just got out of the Champions League, like I mentioned, Real Madrid, they also screwed up on the weekend. They managed to get a last-minute equaliser to grab a point. Otherwise, this title race would definitely be over for them. But yeah, along with Barcelona. So Barcelona played Atletico, and Real Madrid played Sevilla. So the top 4 all played each other, and both games were a draw. So it's kind of as you were before. Atletico Madrid remain in front of them. Remain in front of the other 2. Real Madrid and Barcelona are 2 points behind now. But again, the game's ticking by, and the points gap is still staying there for Atletico Madrid. So not a good week for Barcelona, because they lost last week as well to blow this thing all wide open. And obviously Madrid go out of the Champions League, and now they're losing their grip on their own title. So again, so like I keep mentioning, a lot of this is kind of bubbling along very, very nicely. You've got all these title races are going to be concluded in the next 2 weeks, and a lot of the favourites aren't winning them at the minute. So apart from Bayern Munich, they managed to win their 9th in a row, but that league really is uncompetitive, so that wouldn't that's not going to feature on the chat too often. Little preview before I get into Formula One. Little preview to this weekend. UFC is back, and it's a big. The card isn't a big card. Still some excellent fights on there, But the main event is the one that people are going to be looking at. It's the lightweight championship titles on the line. So Khabib's vacated that. And now we've got Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler. So Oliveira's a slight favourite. He's had a real run. Both of these guys have actually had like a long run to get to here. It's not been an overnight thing. Chandler started over in Bellator, which is kind of like you wouldn't call it a sister organisation. It's just a different organisation, different company. And he's had 11 title fights. He's had 3 different title reigns. He's been there and done it. He's 35 years old, so he's kind of just outside of the peak, but he's still one of the best in the world. He's the experienced head. He's been here. He's been there and done it. He won on his debut not so long ago. And you've got Charles Oliveira, who's kind of gone through the weight classes a little bit, struggled with his weight, missed weight I think 3 or 4 times in a consecutive run. Had a real issue with making weight because he was trying to make the weight below. And now he's at his normal, much better weight for him, which is obviously 155. Now he's an 8-fight win streak. He's got the most submissions in the UFC. I think he's also got the most finishes in UFC history. So he goes in there after it. And he looked great against Tony Ferguson towards the end of last year, who was the previous scariest guy in the division. So he really made a statement there. So I guess the only insight I would probably offer is that experience. I think title fights they're different. They're just so different. You can win on and get your win streak going. When there's a title fight on the line, with the title on the line, I guess luckily in a way for Oliveira, he's not facing the champion, whoever that would be at the time, but he's facing a champion in Chandler, who's been there and done it. He knows how to get it done in championship fights. He's lost a few, but he's when you've been in there in the championship fight, I think the nerves play a big part. And this is going to be Oliveira's first ever title fight. This is going to be Chandler's 12th. So that I would think that could be the difference. Oliveira is the favorite, like I said. It could go either way. Like Chandler, in terms of striking, could take out Oliveira, but Oliveira, if it gets close or on the ground, Oliveira should get that one done. So it's going to be a fascinating fight. It's going to be a really, really good fight. It's one of those good quality fights, good style contrast. Chandler being a wrestler and Oliveira being a jiu-jitsu black belt, like a high level jiu-jitsu black belt. I mean, most finishes in UFC history. So, he's a good one to have in there for sure. So yeah, watch this space. That's going to be hopefully another Usman Masvidal special. Formula One. Again, look, I mean, the summary is Lewis Hamilton is raising his game, and Max Verstappen, in his first real season as a challenger for the title, is realizing what the levels are. I think you can be quick. This goes for anyone really, not even just Max or Lewis or anyone. Like there's quick drivers, a lot of quick drivers who can put in quick laps, who can win races, and when they're in good cars, they can do things. But to win the championship, certainly against Lewis Hamilton, you need to be good for so long. You need a lot to go your way. You need the right strategy. You need to have tire management. You need to have composure, and you need to have the right teammate. So at the minute, Max's teammate Sergio Perez, he started okay, but he's not quite up to the level. I mean, Max is one of the best. He's certainly top 2 best at the minute. But he's one of the best, talent-wise, in Formula One that's come in. Perez isn't quite backing him up the way Bottas is backing up Hamilton at the minute. And I think it's showing in terms of the team strategy game. Max is kind of having to do a lot of it by himself. They've got, it's hard to say who's got the outright better car, because every week it seems like Red Bull are very, very close, if not slightly ahead. But then when it really matters, Hamilton puts his car above Max. So obviously 100 pole positions for Hamilton on Saturday, which is 32 ahead of the next guy being Michael Schumacher. So pole position, qualifying is Hamilton's thing. He normally gets on pole, and they were quick all weekend. I mean, Verstappen was very quick in some of the practice sessions, but Hamilton managed to get that one on pole. And then again, we're seeing lap 1, corner 1, Obviously, if you've got a very long run down to turn one, like there was in Imola a couple of weeks ago, a couple of races ago, Verstappen at the minute is willing to risk more in the first corner than Hamilton, and that's because Hamilton is realizing, listen, I'll let you have corner one, and we can have a race, or I can go for it in corner one, and we can both crash, or I can crash, or I think that's the difference I'm seeing out of these 4 races so far. It's 4 or 5. Can't remember. Every single time they come close, Verstappen seems to, in terms of early doors, Verstappen is getting, I mean, aggressive is the right way. It's not dangerous or bad sportsmanship. It's kind of, it's firm but fair. And Hamilton is coming off second in those, because I think he's playing the long game a bit more. And in all of those races, apart from Imola where it was raining, Hamilton has kind of played the long game and then got him later on. And this is no different. I mean, they both got off the line. Verstappen was, Hamilton had to come out of the corner a little bit because they would have crashed if Hamilton had carried on. So off they go. Safety car again, because Tsunoda broke down. And then Verstappen and Hamilton were just clearing off. They were at night and day above everybody in this race. And it was just stayed with it. It's very hard track to overtake. So Hamilton was staying around about 1.5 seconds behind Verstappen the whole way, fairly controlling the pace quite well. It wasn't, Verstappen was out in front, but Hamilton was quicker. But it's very hard to overtake for various reasons. A lot of the corners are very tight, and there's just not a lot of good corners where you can overtake. Normally the good overtaking corners are quite slow, but these are there's a lot of flowing corners and off camber corners. It's very hard to overtake in Spain. So, you'd get into an opportunity to try overtake, and then you just run out of road. So the first phase, Hamilton was quicker, but Verstappen held the lead. They both pitted, and then Hamilton stayed out a little bit longer to try and get fresher tyres towards the end. So he pitted a bit later, had a decent enough gap to try and catch up to Verstappen. He did that, and then just as he was going to overtake Verstappen, his team called him in. Well, they obviously had a discussion. It wasn't a random thing. His team decided, listen, if we can pit you now, you're going to be so much faster than Verstappen for the last 20 laps. You should probably overtake him. And they caught Red Bull kind of by surprise. They caught me by surprise. I was, because Hamilton was ready to overtake Verstappen on that lap, but he dives into the pits, gets new tyres, and the gap was 22 seconds. So he had 22 laps, 22 seconds, 23 seconds actually. So I mean, a second a lap is unheard of in terms of a gap between two drivers. But obviously, if you put fresh tyres on one, you're going to get it. And Hamilton was almost 2 seconds a lap quicker, and he was absolutely flying through the field. Caught Verstappen towards the end, and then I think what's interesting, what I'm seeing a lot now, more clearly at the last 2 races, if one guy drops behind, well, at the minute it's Verstappen dropping behind. If he drops behind, they're going to try and pit him and get that extra point for fastest lap. Because if you're going to come second comfortably, you might as well pit, get fresh tyres on, and try and get that extra point, which is interesting. I've never seen as tactical a battle, even when Ferrari were good, 3 or 4 years ago. They never really did that. It wasn't really something you just pit your guy and try and get the fastest lap if you're behind. So right now there's so tactical. But Hamilton was again excellent. I mean, even the race he wasn't excellent in Imola, he still came from the gravel with half a wing to come second. So I think overall Hamilton's experience and his team, like I mentioned at the very beginning, I knew this would be something that would be important. The team and the strategy, I think, for people who don't know too much about Formula One, you'll see Hamilton winning, Hamilton on pole, but he is just the driver. He is obviously the best of all time, but even it's more about the team and the car setup and the strategy, because the strategy won them that race comfortably. Because if they'd stayed out, as most people was expecting, Hamilton would have got in front, but they both would have had very, very worn tyres at the end. You never know what would have happened. So strategy is strategy, and team and experience, like I mentioned with Chandler and Oliveira, it's so big in sports. And I mean, the rookie and the young gun and the exciting young talent in any sport has that kind of raw excitement. They don't have as much trepidation about things, but experience and having been there before just takes out the possibility of mistakes. So if you've been there and done it, like wherever it's, the NFL or whoever, like the older guys, they've just seen it before. LeBron James, Tom Brady, they've just seen more things go wrong and go right. Whereas the young gun, Max Verstappen, Patrick Mahomes, whoever you want to say, hasn't seen as much. They're not as they won't be as cool and calm as collected as they should be. And certainly, again, I mentioned in Imola about Max getting a bit frayed. There's a lot. I'm seeing a lot more. The pressure's going up, and Max's radio stuff with his team is getting very, very tense, very kind of angry and stressed. So I think as the season wears on, in 2 weeks' time, it's going to be Monaco, which is going to be an interesting race. I mean, one of the pundits yesterday said that they have to win this race to keep this title chase alive. It's not literally like that because the gap's only 14 points. It's still, 2 race wins or whatever. But it looks, momentum-wise, is firmly with Lewis Hamilton, and Mercedes. And it's only those two. I mean, Perez and Bottas aren't even consistently getting podiums. I mean, Perez definitely isn't, but Bottas, who cheekily held up Lewis Hamilton a little bit, because I think he's actually sick of playing number 2 to Lewis at this point. So Lewis Hamilton, when he's on his charge to go hunt down Verstappen, Bottas was told Lewis is coming, don't hold him up, and he didn't hold him up, but he definitely didn't get out of the way when he should have, and Hamilton actually had to overtake him, on the track. So that's going to be, maybe, I guess, as time goes on, that'll become less of an issue because Bottas is going to clearly be out of the championship race. But I think Bottas is, I don't mind it, if as long as you didn't take Hamilton out, or any teammate, as long as you don't take them out, but definitely do your own thing. I mean, playing the team game is cool, but it must be super demoralising for someone like Bottas or any second driver to be told to get out of the way, essentially, because the other guy's faster. But very interesting race. Again, like I said, Monaco's coming up in 2 weeks, which we haven't seen for 2 years. Because obviously last year with COVID, they cancelled it. So they're back at Monaco now, which isn't normally a Hamilton track. Mercedes have managed to win, most of the races there, but there's been a lot of behind the scenes stuff. There was one where there's a pit stop that went wrong in their favour. One where they just, because you can't overtake, it's almost impossible to overtake in Monaco without severe danger of crashing. So if this track was hard to overtake in, Monaco is the king of being difficult to overtake on. So very very much looking forward to it, because Monaco is definitely, it looks the best. Like I said before, it looks the best. It's not the best racetrack, and the racing isn't going to be the best, but it looks the best. It's cool to see, and it's historic and all of that. So a lot of interesting stuff across all the sports in last week. They're all coming to a nice conclusion. The Formula One is still as advertised. It's still, there's actually, both guys, Verstappen and Hamilton, they've both started the season the best they've ever done. Which is more impressive, I guess, for Hamilton, because he's been doing this for years and years. But this is the most points Hamilton's ever had after 4 races. So it kind of does tell you, but he literally is elevating even higher. Max is, he is excellent. Max is world class, and he's going up a level as well. But between the two, it's going to be experience that's going to keep paying dividends. So the tracks are going to get different. There's going to be some tracks that Red Bull are very good on. Mercedes, I think, have caught up. They've definitely caught up. I don't know. It's hard to know who's actually outright better because all the courses are different. If they race on the same track every week, you probably know who's better. But right now, they're kind of going to different tracks, and you're going to get to see a lot more variation. And there's nothing more variable, I guess, than Monaco in a couple of weeks. So yeah, looking forward to covering a lot more. There's going to be some major championships coming up and a lot of other very, very interesting sporting events. So watch this space. Again, like it if you like it, and if you don't like it, do it anyway. Tell your friends, subscribe, all of that fun stuff, and you can get more videos coming up.